Hi, friends. Welcome to the Infertility Club. Today, I am very excited about our special guest, my husband, Jacob Bang. Hi, Jake.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks so much for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
I was thinking back to our infertility journey, and I was thinking we've shared a lot about our experiences and tips and tricks and things that we felt were useful during our process, but we've never really opened up about why we needed to do infertility. So I'm excited today to dive into that, and I appreciate you being open and sharing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot I feel like looking back that we haven't talked about that I'm excited to bring up. So yeah, yeah, let's get into it.
All right, Jake. So tell us a little bit about your journey to parenthood. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so no, it's really interesting. And this is one of my first times actually introspectively thinking about this and talking this through. Because I feel like from in my mind, I was like, I knew I was always going to have kids. I always wanted to have kids. I always planned on having kids. And so when Kelsey and I first were trying and we weren't having kids, it was kind of like, well, this doesn't seem this like it seemed more like a little bump in the road. Like because in my mind, I'm like, oh well, whatever, we'll get through this because I'm planning on having kids somehow. Not really knowing why or what were the reasons. So I never really put much thought into it because, like I said, I always felt like it was a sure thing. Like it's something that's just going to happen. I'm just going to have kids and that's going to be what life is like. And then I guess when I was faced with that, oh, this might not be an option or it might, we might not have kids. There's chances we won't. Kelsey was really good at this. Like, I mean, I would be teaching Sunday school with like a bunch of little kids at our church and it'd be Father's Day or Mother's Day, and she would be like, oh yeah, we can wish them a happy Mother's Day, the girls, and a happy Father's Day to the boys when it was appropriate. And I always thought, Kelsey always had this view that like, no, you can be a father figure, you can be a mother figure, you don't have to have a child to be that example, to be that leading, to be a leading influence and act as a father or act as a mother. I think all that, that's intuitive. It's part of our us being humans. Granted, I know it's different other people's kids versus your own kids, but at the same time, being able to show love, being able to help, comfort, being able to talk through, difficult things that a kid is dealing with. I mean, that's what parents do. And so I just always thought to myself, well, I guess if I don't have my own kids, I knew there were other options. I knew adoption was an option. I knew foster care system was an option. We obviously had friends who'd done IVF and gone through infertility treatment. So I knew there was like some options. So I guess I wasn't ever really too disheartened about it all because I knew just whatever was going to happen was going to happen and it would work out great. Whether that be we adopt, whether it be I might never have kids and I, can still be a father, to people. And so it wasn't really that, yeah, I didn't think about it too much is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think that's a good perspective to have when you're going through infertility is to kind of have that open mindset because then the reality is you don't know what's going to happen. And we like to stay hopeful, we like to stay positive, and there are ways that we can be parents to those around us. So when I'm like referring to myself in third person, when you guys were going through
You could say when we were going through.
Yeah. So when we were going through infertility, what point did you realize that we needed more help and that it wasn't going to happen between the two of us?
I think it was when, we had started going, you were taking just from like, the gynecologist saying, oh yeah, here, try taking this medication. I don't remember the name of the medication.
Clomid.
That's the one. Yeah. And we were timing it. We were trying to look at the calendar. We were paying attention to like, okay, well, this is when Kelsey's going to ovulate. This is when we should try to have a baby and things like that. And after like 6 months of that, I was pretty certain I'm like, okay, like this isn't just bad timing of anything. We're trying our darndest, like there's probably other things at play. And so you had set up the appointment with the infertility center. And even thinking then they were like 6 months out, 4 months out. I don't remember exactly. They were ways out and just thinking, well, I'm glad we got in when we did because we probably should have put in requests a couple months ago.
Totally. So walk us through that process of what it was like from your first appointment at the fertility clinic to the process of where you're at now.
But I remember our first visit, we met with the doctor, Dr. Falk, and he kind of, I don't remember if he drew it up, but he's like, look, there's only like a few couple reasons why pregnancies don't happen. It could be the male side with related to the sperm or something on that side. It could be the women's side with, hey, the eggs aren't getting to the sperm, or it could be even the carrying where the actual embryo doesn't carry, and so there's those are the three, main reasons I think he spelled out. And as we went in and did, our tests and things like that, he basically came down and said, well, it's probably not this. He focused on what those things are and what we could do to mitigate those. And what we found out was that on my side, I had very high sperm count, but low mobility and not a good, low quality. And so that probably played a significant significant part in it. I know on your side, you also had very bad cramping, very bad periods. I don't know what it's called when you have that internal bleeding. What's that called?
Yeah, so the doctors thought with me that they thought that I had endometriosis, but with that, they said they can't actually say it without going in and doing a surgery to find out. So for us, it was male and female factor. Yeah, so with you, it was the low motility with the sperm. So you had too high of a sperm count. So all the sperm were fighting each other off. So they had a very low chance to actually make it to the egg. So we did a process called ICSI when we did IVF, and that's where they inject the sperm into the egg to give you more of a chance on that.
Well, and didn't they do something else as well? I forgot what it was called, where they actually took my sperm and they found the best of the best.
Yeah, they did. They cleaned them off and
they went ahead and they found, okay, these are the better ones. These are the ones that aren't going to, not so good swimmers or whatever you call it. They took the best of the best. And they kind of did a little filtering of them to make sure they got the best possible sperm from my sperm sample.
It's cool they can do that.
Well, and I knew, I was like, okay, well, that's good because that can at least help our odds coming from my side of things.
Well, and with knowing that, it's interesting. Our doctor first recommended doing IUI, but after we had talked and navigated through some things, we decided we felt best about running with IVF. And so walk us through what happens next.
Once we decided, hey, look, we don't want to do the IUI. We just want to dive into IVF because we had already been waiting so long, I feel like. And we're just like, look, let's just get it. We just want our kids. We just want to get them. Also, one of the other things with IVF is that we're going to be able to put in 2 embryos. Secretly, we wanted to put in 3 because we didn't know. But we just wanted to be yeah, let's just get our family one and done, in one treatment type thing. But yeah, luckily for us, we got 2 and that was amazing. And so I think that was another way into that where we're like, look, we want to get more bang for our buck. Let's see if we can get twins out of this as well.
Yeah. Well, for us with the IUI, our doctor said it was a less than 6% chance for anything to take. And as much as that would have been good to get more information to be able to help other, when we did IVF and things like that, looking back, I think that could have been a good option to at least maybe do 1 round to kind of get some more information for our bodies and stuff. But IVF, he said we had about a 60 to 75% chance. And that just seemed so much more appealing.
It just seemed a lot better because the amount of time it takes for those treatments, I mean, is a couple months plus the drugs, plus getting all that. And also the thing is too, at the time when we met with the doctor, we knew, okay, this is what we want to do. And we were talking through the pricing options. And obviously, they had all these different pricing tiers. There's no guarantee hey, I paid for this, so I get a pregnancy and we keep going until you get me, you get us pregnant. No, it wasn't like that. I think the best option they had was you could pay for an insurance type thing where you pay a certain amount and it's good for at least 3 tries or something. If you don't get pregnant on one of those 3 tries, then too bad. But it would give you a little more wiggle room so you don't have to pay for each trial in full. You could just pay for these 3 trials, but you might get pregnant on the first time and then it was a little bit of a waste, but I remember there was those options.
Totally. Yeah, it's a gamble. I think that's something that's a good reminder, though, to people that when you're researching clinics and things like that and trying to find a doctor, make sure you ask all their options. And I think financing is maybe something we should talk about on this as well, because when we find out we needed to do IVF and that was our next steps, we did not have the money to do it.
No, we totally didn't. And that's what I'm saying too. We met with the doctor. We didn't actually start treatments. It was at least
2 years later.
And it was nice because we got to see the numbers and see, okay, this is what we need to save up for. This is what we need to work towards. This is our goal. At the time, I'm pretty sure we had a ton of debt at the time too. like at least
Mhm.
50 to 60,000, I think, in debt. I mean, that was some school debt, and a big chunk of it was credit card debt.
Yeah.
And so we were just thinking like, well, it would be irresponsible for us just to take on more debt to do this. And, I remember that was at least some of my thoughts on it is like, okay, well, let's at least try, save up for this year, pay off some of our debt, get some, get saved up for this treatment so we could do this. And I even remember even talking at my work and trying to see like, okay, well, our healthcare plan doesn't pay for this. Are there any that do? I remember doing a bunch of research like that, even looking at self-insured, getting our own health insurance and stuff like that to help pay for the infertility treatments. But yeah, I remember, talking who I was working for and talking with HR and being like, hey, so next year when you guys go around and are shopping for a new health plan, maybe, shop around for one that can have some adoption benefits or some infertility treatment benefits within that health plan. Because ultimately, it's that agreement between the company and the healthcare provider, however they do that, of what level of service they have. Because it didn't matter that it was United Healthcare or not. Like, it was more the tiered plans and stuff. Granted, my company never did go do that. But then I had another job at another place that did.
Yeah, yeah. Your next job then offered it was like 10 grand that you could use for fertility treatments, adoption, foster care. It was like a one-time use type of thing.
Which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool that more companies are offering things like that. And I hope down the road, I hope by bringing more awareness to these subjects and things like that, that more companies will jump on board. Statistics say 1 in 6 people are experiencing infertility. And so that's a large amount of people that could benefit from something like that.
Yeah. And the truth is, too, from a company perspective, the premiums or whatever they're paying, it doesn't differ much to be able to give that option to employees. Pretty sure, like from the healthcare side of things, it's probably more significant depending on how many people take on that. But that's kind of, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like that's the point of healthcare is that everyone's paying amounts, and the people who are spending less, it's going towards those people who are spending more and things like that. So I think that's it's not this prorated thing, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just remember that was one of the main causes. I mean, finances were a big thing that I think delayed, at least in my mind, not quite being ready to have kids. And so I know we had even looked at like, could we take a personal loan, and a lot of times, even with a bank, there's certain amounts. And also they obviously they're not just going to give you money without some form of collateral. And looking into that, it's like, okay, well, that's probably not the way to do it. What we ended up doing is actually just getting a personal loan from Kelsey's mom,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, we still, we had my school debt, we had our credit card debt. It got to this point where we weren't getting out of that quite
Yeah.
yet. But we knew we shouldn't wait any longer. And we just said, let's just do it and we'll figure out the rest. And luckily for us, I mean, we did figure out the finances the following, was it the following year when we got out, when we started doing Jordan Pages?
Yeah, and it was interesting because I felt like we were so focused on trying to save money for infertility that our shopping got even more out of hand. Like we were even, I mean, escalating it even more. So we had set a date that November, that was going to be the latest date that we would start IVF. And we were like, this is what we're going to do. And so we had gotten to that time. And I remember we had done all those options. We had went and found all the places to see loans and what we could do because we were like, oh my gosh, what kind of mess have we got ourselves into? We were super grateful because, my mom did a loan with us. We took a loan out with her for 4.25% interest rate. And we had our IVF and our debt and we collected it all together. And luckily, it was interesting. Having kids really got us into gear. And we had that 80,000 loan paid off in 2 years, which we had never done anything like that. So I'm grateful for that outcome because that wasn't our future history on that.
Because honestly, if we would have had to wait, or if we would have had, it would have been 2 years later.
Yeah, and we still wouldn't have had kids at that point. Yeah, so that was so scary. Do you remember those feelings? Like, walk us through those feelings of like doing IVF and having all of that money and those feelings behind it. Walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, it is kind of like it's kind of crazy because you don't normally spend that amount at one go unless you have cash. But like I do remember paying at the clinic these large amounts and just being like, oh my gosh, like. Yeah, it was daunting. I knew obviously we had the loan, we had a really good interest rate. I knew mom wasn't going to be throwing us to a collections agency. So I guess, I did have that kind of peace of mind if like we missed a payment. But at the same time, my only previous experience with, paying off a loan had been like a car loan. I was overpaying each month to pay it down quicker and stuff like that. And it wasn't bad. But no, but this was, yeah, a significant amount. It's one thing when you don't have debt and you're like, oh, if I lose my job, I'll find a new job. But it's like you have a job and then you're like, oh man, if you do have debt, it's like, no, I need this job because I need to pay off this, and that, or I need to be able to pay for X, Y, and Z. It just made, maybe it made work more stressful. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. My work, I remember at the time, was very accommodating. They were very great with money and debt. It's real easy to think of, well, it's money I don't have anyway, so it's not a big deal, and think of that. But then knowing, well, no, I've got to pay this back. I was glad that we went ahead and took those steps because I feel like it really did help get us in gear of like, okay, no, like we need to change our spending habits, not just for us, but for our family moving forward, for our kids. Whereas, if it's just us, boo-hoo, we get another job or we file for bankruptcy or, I don't know. It just adds more weight, I think, when it's for your family.
Yeah, and I think looking at that too, I think that's why we took a lot of preparations for IVF really seriously because we felt like there was so much on the line. Are there any preparations you remember us doing that you can tell us about?
We're just trying to eat healthy, getting rid of like all cosmetics, like perfumes and stuff like that. I mean, granted, I wasn't much of a cologne guy anyway, but using a different kind of deodorant, getting rid of our normal household cleaners, our bleach and stuff like that, and just using more holistic, natural cleaning supplies and stuff like that. Those are the steps I feel like that I remember taking, and it wasn't hard, it wasn't difficult, but it was an adjustment and it was something different and new that I felt hopefully it was gonna help.
Mm-hmm.
I did want my sperm that to be healthy, that I was going to hopefully have some, not toxins or chemicals unnecessarily in my body. I don't remember how long we were doing no flour, no sugar. How long was that?
1 year.
But I mean, I was doing that too. 1 year. Yeah. I feel like enough time that in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm detoxing. I'm getting myself healthy. Granted, I should stay that way.
Yeah, we've kind of backpedaled a little bit there.
But that's the thing. But I do remember, hey, that was me preparing myself and my body to have the best chance of success.
And I think in that process, what we didn't realize by doing that is it also moving forward in the IVF process, for me at least, I felt like it gave me a sense of control in an area that I had no idea what was going on. But by controlling, knowing what I was eating and what I was putting into my body at that time, it felt like it gave me a sense of kind of a peace and stability in an area that felt not stable.
Yeah. Well, no, totally. And it is the one thing, like, if you think about it, I can't control whether, we get pregnant necessarily, or I can't control, whether this is going to be successful or not, but I can control that I'm going to eat this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like that was something I could control. And so, yeah, that was nice for some mental clarity. I remember listening to like self-help books, motivational, but I was doing a lot of that stuff probably too.
Yeah, we were.
Just, that mindset of like, hey, no, this is going to be great. What's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm doing my darndest as much as I can. And that's all I can do. So I don't know. I wasn't beating myself up about it.
Yeah. We even made dream boards and we put them up at our wall. And like we made two. We put one in our garage where we would see where we'd hop into our car every day. And we had one hanging in our room by our door where we would exit all the time. And it just had like our dreams and hopes to hopefully give us a bigger picture of what's to come. And I think that was definitely helpful. I think filling your mind with those positive things and positive affirmations and self-help books and doing all of that is a great way to stay focused on the bigger goal, but also keep that positive outlook through it all.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
So walk us a little bit through the IVF process because your experience with it was a little bit different than my experience.
Yeah. I do remember we obviously found out what we were going to do. We found out the timing. I do remember, I did want to be very much in the loop and in the know of the calendar, the timing of the medications, because one, I didn't want you to accidentally forget or mess up. And I wanted to be equally as responsible, like, okay, let's make sure this is when we need to take this medicine. This is when we need to take this one. This is when these birth controls. And I feel like I'd already been kind of a part of that or helping with that anytime it came to like taking your birth control medicine or any things like that. Like I felt like it was equally my job too, just to make sure things were going well. remember when we got all the medications, like the injections and things like that, that was a little bit overwhelming because they're real expensive and they didn't come with any instructions really in the box. Luckily, we had some friends come over, Emily and her husband talked us through it. And that was nice to have just someone talk through, oh, this is for this one and this is this one. So you do these ones. And granted, we eventually got that from the infertility clinic, from our doctor and stuff too. But it was when we were actually getting ready to start doing that.
Theirs isn't as in depth though, and theirs was just like a video, like watch this, and we watched it like 20 times, and we're like, we still have questions.
I know, I know. But it was nice to just get that overview picture of like, oh, here's all your stuff. This is for this is for that, and this is for this, and kind of getting, okay, that's good. Some of it had to be refrigerated, I remember, and things like that, which wasn't bad. It's just, I didn't know,
If you know anyone who's gone through fertility treatments, ask them to walk you through your medications. It takes off a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and it can help give you more reassurance through the process.
I remember watching the actual injection videos. I remember watching those like so many times, but especially before the first injection, because I was going to be the one who's going to be giving it to you. And I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I get this right. I got to make sure I'm not going to like get air bubbles in it because then you could die. Thinking all these worst case scenarios of like, or we're going to waste it. And so, so I do remember, that was a little bit stressful. Granted, the first time was great. And I don't think we had no problems with it. I remember there was one time you were freaking out at me because like I was trying to get bubbles out. And so like I was tapping it and I was injecting a little medication coming out. She's like, you're wasting all the medication. I'm like, I got to get the bubbles out. It's one of those things where like, I remember taking some chemistry classes where like, it's not so much the exact proportions, but it's the amount and the reactions that are more important. And so like, as long as you can like have over amounts of a certain chemical and you mix it with this chemical and then you end up with the right amount. I guess I should have thought of it in that way and not been too stressed out about it because it's there and it's going to work. And what we found too, even as we were giving, one of the injections we were giving was actually to increase, all the different egg counts and like enlarge them so that it all be released. Right. And I remember like, we'd go into the doctor's appointments as we're giving injections really regularly, like day by day, and they'd be checking, they do an ultrasound. They'd be like, there's this many. There's this many.
Yeah. They'd check on the follicles.
Well, and what they were doing is like, well, if there's not enough, then don't worry, we'll just give you some more of this medication and you'll just go for it a bit longer. And we actually ended up having to order, I think, another amount than we had originally ordered. And it wasn't a big deal. It's just, okay, you just got to keep going until you're ready to go. Yeah, I do remember a lot of that. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, my work was really accommodating. I talked with my boss, the department head, stuff like that. Like, hey, we're just going through infertility treatments. And so I want to be supportive. I want to go to as many, doctor's appointments as I can, specifically as well. Like I'm going to be the one, there's times in the morning I got to be doing shots and random things like that, and they were really great. I feel like I got to go to most appointments with you. There were some that I wasn't able to. I think if I was having like important meetings or important product launches going on.
But we always try to schedule them at either like early morning or a lunch break. And so I think that's something that's good to know about yourself is like if you need someone there, because I had gone through a lot of appointments on my own. And so by the time we had gotten to doing IVF, I was done doing appointments by myself. I didn't want to do them anymore alone. And so I had talked to Jake about that. And I was like, we've got to figure something out because I don't enjoy going by myself and I need you there or someone there. And so at that point, then, yeah, I was so grateful. Your employers were super great. But I think that's a good reminder to include others in when you're going through these treatments and when you are experiencing infertility. I think a lot of times we think that, we don't need to let others in or let them know what's going on, but people are more than accommodating and willing to help, but we just have to let them know and let them know where we're needing help because a lot of times people don't know what we need. And so if we can communicate that with them, usually it can happen.
And that's the thing, like, I could have easily just said to my boss too, I could have been like, hey, we've got some medical issues. I could have been vague about it and stuff like that. But what was really cool seeing is like, everyone at my work, people I worked with, they knew that we were doing infertility treatments, that we weren't able to have kids. And not going to lie, they probably, felt a little sorry for us or whatever. I don't know. But they probably were like, okay, this is totally fine. Like, take all the time you need kind of thing. And not only that, like once we did have like when we found out you were pregnant, I mean, they threw us the craziest like baby shower ever. You know, it was just so sweet. Like
Yeah,
everyone was so excited. And I'm like, this is really cool to have these with this kind of experience with coworkers.
totally. It's bonding in a way.
Yeah. And the truth is I know they would have been with us even if it was a down.
Hmm.
You know, if it would have been an up, it would have been a down. They would have been supportive and there. And it's like that's awesome. That's cool. But I wouldn't have had any of that if I would have been secretive about it. If I would have just been like, oh, we just have doctor's appointments and things like that. I wouldn't have had any of that experience with those coworkers. And so that was pretty big.
Yeah. I think this is something to touch on because I remember being terrified to share about our infertility struggle, and not because of how I felt or anything. I think I was terrified because I just didn't want, like you said, I didn't want people to feel sad. I didn't want people to feel, because for me, it wasn't a sad thing. I knew I was a mother in my heart, one way or another. And I think that's something that's important, is opening up about our struggles. And it can be hard, but because we did, I felt like we had this army cheering us on and supporting us, and we knew that they would be there no matter the outcome. And that was a really, really eye-opening experience for me. And so if there's anything that we can get through on this podcast today, I think one big thing is open up to those you love. And if you're scared to tell anyone or you haven't communicated with anyone, open up to a good friend and be open and share what you need, and ask them to come to doctor's appointments with you, or go to lunch after an appointment, or something that can help you move forward to your goals of becoming a parent, but also find joy in it too by having that support with you.
It's one thing to deal with something, difficult, but also to deal with it just by yourself or feel like you're all alone. Something. I mean, that's just so much harder. So
Mhm.
yeah, no, I really do appreciate that. And even, I mean, you were the best example to me of that, because I mean, I can't even remember where we were at in the process, but I remember you got up in church one Sunday and you went up and there was like, you just spilled the beans. You're like, hey, yeah, we're going through infertility problems and infertility treatments, and we're really, hoping we can have kids, and, just real grateful for the friends I had, and you got up and shared that. And I feel like, I mean, it was in that neighborhood that we had found so many other friends are like, oh, they had gone through infertility. They had twins through infertility. They had gone, and I think the only reason we knew that is because you had gone out and shared, and then they came to you and said, hey, I did this too.
Yeah.
I mean, for all I know, that's every neighborhood. 1 in 6 is a high number, but it would have been anywhere if you shared that experience. Or maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's the Utah drinking water or something, but
But you're right, though. But by mentioning that, though, I was able to find friends that did come up and say, hey, we've gone through infertility as well. We did IVF. This was our doctor. And that was my opportunity to say, oh my gosh, can I take you out to lunch? Can I come over? Can I watch your kids? Whatever. So I can have time with you and ask you questions. And that really helped us in our process in that 2 years that we, knew we needed to do IVF, but weren't doing IVF yet.
yeah.
It did. It helped us get the resources and connections and learn through that. So yeah, I did put that connection together. But you're right. By sharing that, we were able to find people who had gone through it.
It was cool too to see when we found out we had, we were pregnant with twins. We also knew all these other families who also had twins, who were like even some of just, a couple years ahead of us or whatnot. And then we got all that like great advice of like, okay, you're going to want this. This is the best kind of, this.
New bassinets for the win.
Get these snoozed. Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have heard about that aside from our friends who also had twins.
Do you have any advice for couples going through infertility on how to either grow closer together, how to support each other, any of that?
Yeah, the biggest advice I would have is look at it as like, whether it's a his problem or a her problem, like don't look at it that way. Look at it as an our problem. I feel like that was something I always tried to do, is like, no, this is our problem. Like this is our struggle, and we can get through it together and we can overcome together. I think having that mindset of being, it's both of us and we're in this together, whether it was your problem or my problem. I think that's probably the best advice I can give, because it's the same as opening up. It's better going through it with someone else. It's better feeling that you're moving to the same goal with someone else. You're both are cheering each other on. You're both trying your best, and it's my responsibility just as much as it's yours, for this to work out, for us to get, to be able to have kids and have our family. It's not, well, yeah, that's my advice.
I think that's really great. And I think that's a really good perspective to have, and that it is an us problem. And it's interesting going through IVF, and I felt like that really did bond us. And it was fun. As much as it was hard, as much as it was stressful, as much as it was a roller coaster. I mean, we also had fun. Like Jake is not giving himself enough credit here. He was really good at this. Like he would plan fun dates for us and things to look forward to. And he was also super sensitive of my feelings and kind of thinking about it because you were just such an incredible partner and husband. And Jake knows I love blankets. And so he was so cute. And he got me a special blanket for the IVF process. I also love playing games. And he had gotten me Mario Kart all set up. So when it was my princess days, he had taken work off and he was just there playing with me Mario Kart. And we had so much fun together. And I was grateful that we could have those moments together because in the midst of just the chaos, it was fun being together.
Yeah. No, that was fun. I loved it when we'd get for going in to the doctor's appointment, we'd be like, okay, now you get to wear your cute new shoes. You got these Hello Kitty shoes or Converse or something. Yeah, anyway, yeah, I remember that was always fun too.
Yeah, that's kind of goes under like tips for doctor's appointments type of thing. Wearing something that's cute or makes you excited for it. Like, I mean, because reality is when you're there, you're pretty much undressed from top down. I remember Jake was always like, what cute socks are you going to wear? What shoes are you going to wear? And, just things that would get me excited about the appointment. And we would usually do like a lunch date after. And that was always fun. I think having things to look forward to during that process is really huge. And they can be as simple as cute socks or a lunch date, or, it can be planning a trip or something like that. But let's dive into IVF. So with the male factor infertility, there was a few extra things that you had to do in the process. Do you remember what those are?
I don't remember. I mean, compared to what, the amount of shots and things you had to do, it wasn't that bad. But no, there's definitely.
So you had to do sperm collection multiple times.
Yeah, obviously had to submit, some sperm samples and collection. There was also I had to take some antibiotic type pills. They weren't antibiotics, but it was something along those lines to help,
They were a Z-Pack.
That exactly. Yeah.
Before, when we started doing IVF, when we were trying to find out like a diagnosis type of thing, Jake had to do a sperm collection. And then I also went in and got a bunch of tests done. There's like a whole skew of those and stuff. So that was your first sperm collection. And then when we were doing the IVF process, we both took the Z-Packs. And then that was pretty much it on medications for you.
And I think I did have some criteria that yes, we couldn't have the sex a certain amount of time before or within a certain amount of time before the sperm collection or something like that, just to get as much as we could, I guess. I don't know exactly. I don't remember because it was so long ago. It would be nice to revisit my journal and stuff and read through that. But yeah, it really wasn't bad. I do remember, the day of this final sperm collection where you were going in and because they were going to take the eggs and flush those out and get those out. It was on the exact same day.
Yeah, it was on the egg retrieval day.
And and I had to go and make sure, let's get the best sperm we can get, and so
we had made a video of that day, and I remember I just kept asking you how did it go? How did it go? Because I was so delusional. I was under all the drugs and anesthesia and stuff.
I'm like, it was fine.
Still waking up and you're like, it was fine. It was fine. I'm like, how did it go? But yeah, it's pretty much just like a room, huh? And you get in there and have to come back with a vial.
Yep. And they give you some lubricant. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, it's pretty great. So at that point, they had done that at the same time as the egg retrieval. That way they could take the egg and then also do the ICSI and clean the sperm and put them together. So typically they put the sperm and the egg in a petri dish together, and then they can swim and find their way. And in our case, that's where they, cleaned the sperms, found the best ones, and then injected it into the egg.
Yeah, either into the egg or like right at the surface. I don't know the technical details, but yeah, they definitely got an advantage there.
Yeah, and doing ICSI, I think that was an extra $1,000, no matter how many embryos are.
How many eggs or yeah.
And then after that was just a waiting game to see which embryos made it to the blastocyst stage at that point.
Once they found, hey, these are the embryos that are good to go, then we scheduled the time to put them, to put them back in to the uterus. And I was there for that, and that was fun.
Yeah, and at that point, we had decided we definitely wanted to go for multiples, and so that's one reason we picked our doctor. We had interviewed a few doctors, and we had already felt like this is the one we wanted to go with, but we wanted to make sure that we knew all of our options and stuff. But we specifically picked our doctor because we knew with our circumstances, he would implant too.
After you got the embryos back in, we were taking it easy, but then we also had this flight in a couple days.
So we had planned a trip and kind of that waiting game because we knew, okay, this is either going to be like a recovery trip where we're going to cry and just whatever, eat our hearts out, whatever, hang out, have fun, or this is going to be a trip where we could just go and celebrate and relax. And we just kind of wanted to have something planned. And originally, the way our calendar was lined up, we were supposed to be at that 14 days was when our trip was, but because my follicles weren't growing as fast as we thought they were, we ended up needing more medication. Our schedule got pushed a little, so we were at day 10. Crazy enough, they were able to do a blood draw at that point and find out if we were pregnant or not. So I remember it was like the night before we were getting on the plane, and we had ran to the infertility clinic. They took our blood. And then we get there and then we get a phone call.
And we knew, yeah, and we were pregnant. And also, that wasn't the trip where you surprised me, was it? With the gender. That was further on.
Oh, yes. I surprised Jake. Yeah. So we like to travel and do things, and we're kind of crazy.
Oh.
Yeah. We were on a plane flight to Shanghai, and I had found out the baby's genders, and I had the flight attendant announce over the radio. Luckily, they were like super sweet and accommodating. Thank you, Delta. They announced, well, girls.
But that's the thing. I remember when we went to Mexico, like I knew that you were pregnant, that they were going to take, that they was going to be great. But it was nice getting the call, getting the reassurance, yep, based on the hormone levels, yep, you're pregnant. They're just it's as if they never left kind of thing. They're back home.
We didn't do any at-home tests or pregnancy tests or anything like that because I knew that sometimes the medications and stuff could mess with that. And so that was a complete relief and surprise, and it was awesome. That was a really great call. But at that point, though, when we went on the trip, we were now like terrified to do anything because we were like, we just spent all this money. We just did all of this, and we want to make sure we stay pregnant.
Yep. And so we literally sat on the beach like most of the days. We ate and sat on the beach.
French fries and guacamole.
Meanwhile, everyone else was going on like excursions. And, they were doing like zip lining or like ski-doo rentals or things like that. I think, yeah, the most adventurous thing is we went and we took a cab downtown and bought some shoes or something like from the market.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Really low key. I would say I haven't quite visited Puerto Vallarta yet.
But I do think that something that could be fun for people is to think about is plan something after, just knowing that this can either be a celebration or a sad trip, but that it could at least be a bonding time for you guys to have together. Because I think that was really fun, because that was just a good time for us to be able to like reflect and look back and all that chaos and kind of just let go of some of that. And it ended up being a little bit stressful with the time period not lining up with our calendar exactly, but maybe if you made it like 3 weeks out, not as close.
Yeah.
For anyone out there that's trying to get their spouse on board to implant too, any advice?
That's the thing. I mean, especially with our first kids, we didn't know any better. One kid is, probably difficult. Having 2 kids, probably more so. But at the same time, it's so worth it. It's so awesome having 2. that's the thing. I don't know what it would be like having a singleton compared to twins, but I love twins. Twin parent life is so much fun.
He's such a fun dad, and our girls are 4 years old now, and it's been fun seeing their relationship blossom and them having so much fun together.
Yeah, no, it's definitely fun. And like I said, I think, I mean, selfishly, was it for the money? Was it two for one for the price of one? No, not really. I mean, it was just more of like, I just wanted a family sooner than later. You know, we'd already not wasted, but spent so many years not trying and not having a family that it was when it came time, I'm like, dude, I just want to get these kids and be done so we can move on with life and have awesome life adventures, you know? So that I think was probably more of my thinking is like, I just want these kids now, you know, as many as we can have. If it was 3, then that's great. Then we can maybe call it, you know, if it's 4, even more. So yeah, we're done.
Speaking of that, what's the future for you? What are you thinking? Do you want more kids?
I know, right? What's the future? Oh, always. But at the same time, I don't know. Sometimes, like, being a parent is hard. You know, like I want to be able to give the attention to Davy and Scout that I want to give them, that I feel they deserve. That I want to give them my all. And I just think, well, if I have more, am I going to give them my all? But then again, I'm already doing that, right? I have 2. And I'm obviously can't give them 100%. So am I giving them both 100%? I don't know. So anyway, it might just be in my head. But yeah, someday we still do have some embryos.
Yeah, well, we do have 5 embryos, and we have an appointment with our fertility doctor tomorrow just to see our options.
We'll be finding out what next. Yeah, if there's any timelines we need to be aware of.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing as we're getting older, that's something that's I think is not talked about a lot with infertility is sometimes by the time you're actually having kids, you're older. And so I'm 36. Jake is, how old are you, babe?
Man, it's what year is it? I'm 43.
Luckily, I mean, the cool thing is our embryos are younger than we are.
Yep.
So that's an advantage for us. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what our doctor thinks and some options for us. So I'm excited to dive into that.
And I think if we go again, it'll be for twins.
We've loved it. Jake, with the male factor infertility, is there any advice you have for other men that are experiencing this? Because we have quite a few friends that don't have any sperm count, or they're adopting embryos, or having these different things that they're experiencing and going through.
You know, that's the thing. It's not anything to be ashamed of. It's just everyone has different bodies. It's like it is what it is. Like it's probably mostly genetics. It could be some trauma, like who knows what. It doesn't matter. And so I would just say try not to sweat it. Don't stress about it. Like be the best you can be, do the best you can do, because really you can't do more than that. And so don't worry about it. It's the only thing I can say. Like it's not something to be ashamed of. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you also say maybe being open to different options as well?
That's an interesting thing. Yeah, because it's interesting to think like, yeah, you know, you might not have the biological child you wanted, you know, like there's something, I don't know, there's something, and even in my head, I think through, it's like, oh no, I want my own flesh and blood. You know, I'd love to be that parent of my own flesh and blood. But at the same time, like we're all children of God, you know what I mean? And it's like, we're all like brothers and sisters, and it's like, we're all family. And so it really doesn't matter. You know, is just one way to think of it, is like whether you able to adopt, whether you're able to be a father figure to someone else, like it is, it's not a big deal. Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really great way to look at it because luckily in my family, we've had examples that we've been able to look at and where we've been able to see adoption, we've been able to see foster care. So these are all options that we had looked into and were open to and wanting to. And that's one thing that I appreciate about Jake is he was always so supportive of any of that. And after a lot of prayer and trying to figure out which route we should go, we had felt like IVF was where we needed to go. But I did really appreciate and feel really grateful that those were things that you were open for and wanting to do. I had seen my sister's families either adopt, and do foster care and see that turn out really wonderful for them and to be able to have their family. And so I was always grateful that Jake could see that too and see that it didn't matter how we created our family. The point was having a family, and whoever was meant to be in our family, one way or another, they would get to us. And I was grateful for that, that you also felt that way and had that perspective. Oh, well, Jake, I appreciate you so much being here on the podcast with me today. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your journey?
No, I think this is good. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, you've got this.
Oh, you do. You do. And yes, if you guys need an infertility friend, we're always here. We have been wanting to do this podcast for 5 years now. And Jake has been a really great supporter and helping me get it up and starting. And so he is behind the scenes working on so much of the back end. And I am really grateful for that and him helping make this possible, because we have over the years have just talked about how we've just felt like the infertility space, there needs to be more hope, more support, and needs to be more love and more talk about it. And we hope by having this podcast that it's a place that you can feel loved and cared and also get ideas on where to take your next steps. And so we appreciate you so much tuning in today and being part of it. Jake, thank you for being here and vulnerable and open and sharing your experiences. And we'll catch y'all later.
See ya.
Looking for a support buddy? Join our social media pages to meet and make new friends. Thank you so much for stopping by the Infertility Club. Wherever you are at in your journey, don't forget, you got this.